In the timeline of the Vietnam War, history books often focus on the massive battles. The Ia Drang Valley, Hamburger Hill, the Tet Offensive. They talk about battalion-sized movements, artillery barrages that shook the earth, and B-52 strikes that turned jungles into moonscapes. But there was another war happening simultaneously. A silent war. A war fought not by thousands, but by 6 men. Alone, unseen, and terrified. We were the LRRPs, Long Range Reconnaissance Patrols. In 1967, the concept was simple, but the reality was a suicide pact. While the main infantry units, the grunts, patrolled in company strength with mortars and air support on speed dial, our job was to be the ghost in the machine. We were dropped far beyond the safety of artillery fans, deep into enemy-controlled territory, often along the borders of Cambodia or Laos. Our mission wasn't to fight, it was to find. To be the eyes and ears of the division. But in the jungle, if you see the enemy is usually seconds away from seeing you. I remember the morning of November 14th clearly. The air at base camp was already heavy with humidity, a wet blanket that clung to your skin the moment you stepped out of the hooch. The smell of burning diesel and laterite clay was everywhere. We were Team 2-4, 6 of us. Preparation for an LRRP mission was a ritual. It wasn't just about packing, it was about stripping away anything that could get you killed. We taped down everything. Dog tags were taped together to stop them from jingling. Grenade pins were taped to prevent accidental pulls in the brush. We didn't wear underwear to prevent rot. We didn't use soap or shaving cream for 3 days. Prior, because the North Vietnamese Army, the NVA, could smell American soap from 100 yards away in the humid air. We had to smell like the jungle, or at least, smell like sweat and dirt. I checked my Car 15 carbine for the 10th time. It was lighter than the standard M16, easier to swing in the thick brush. I loaded 20 rounds into the magazine, but only 18 actually, to prevent the spring from jamming. Every bullet was inspected. One bad round meant you were dead. My rucksack weighed 80 pounds. Inside, 5 days of LRP rations, dehydrated food that tasted like cardboard but kept you moving. 4 quarts of water, 2 Claymore mines, a radio, and ammunition. Lots of ammunition, because if we got compromised, if the silence broke, that ammo was the only thing standing between us and being overrun. Sergeant Miller, our team leader, walked over. He was a man of few words, his face painted in streaks of black and loam green. He looked at us, checking our eyes more than our gear. "The bird is spinning up," he said quietly. "Let's go." There were no speeches, no patriotic music, just the crunch of boots on gravel as we walked toward the flight line. Walking toward the chopper pad, the sound of the Huey slick became the only thing in the world. That rhythmic whop 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 of the rotor blades is a sound that stays with you forever. It's the sound of salvation and the sound of doom, all wrapped in one. We climbed aboard. No doors. We sat on the floorboard, legs dangling out into the open air. The door gunner on the left, a kid who looked no older than 19, gave us a thumbs up. He adjusted his M60 machine gun, scanning the perimeter. We lifted off, the nose of the chopper dipping forward as we gained speed. The base camp shrank beneath us. The rows of tents, the artillery pits, the safety of the wire, it all disappeared. Within minutes, we were over the canopy. The green ocean, mile after mile of triple canopy jungle, unbroken and hostile. From up here, it looked beautiful, serene. But we knew what was down there. Leeches, heat, snakes, and thousands of NVA soldiers moving supplies down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The flight lasted 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. I watched the terrain change from flat rice paddies to rugged, jagged mountains. We were heading to a sector codenamed the Fishhook. Intelligence said there was heavy movement there. Our job was to verify it without getting caught. The pilot's voice crackled over the headset. "LZ coming up." 1 minute out. My stomach tightened. The pucker factor. Every soldier knows it. It's that cold knot of fear that tightens your gut. You grip your weapon harder. You look at your teammates. Nobody smiles. Miller held up one finger. 1 minute. The helicopter began to bank sharp and drop fast. This was combat flying. You don't glide in gently. You drop like a stone to minimize the time you're a target for ground fire. The G-force pressed us into the floor. The wind roared, whipping our pant legs. The trees rushed up to meet us, giant teaks and mahogany trees that seemed to reach out to grab the skids. We weren't landing. The vegetation was too thick. We were doing a hover jump. The bird flared just above the elephant grass, hovering 4 feet off the ground. The prop wash was violent, flattening the grass in a circle around us. Go, go, go! The crew chief screamed over the engine noise. I pushed off the floorboard. The weight of the ruck hit me as I landed in the tall grass. I rolled, ignoring the impact on my knees, and instantly brought my weapon up. As soon as the last man hit the ground, the Huey pulled pitch and rocketed upward. It banked hard and vanished over the tree line. And then, the world stopped. We lay frozen in the elephant grass. This is the most dangerous moment of the mission. The helicopter had just announced to everyone within 5 miles that Americans were here. Now, we had to disappear. We call it the golden minute, but it often lasts 10 or 20. You don't move a muscle. You don't adjust your pack. You don't swat the mosquito biting your neck. You control your breathing. Shallow breaths. In, out. I pressed my face into the dirt. The smell of damp earth and rotting leaves filled my nose. My eyes strained to see through the thick stalks of grass. My ears went into overdrive. At first, the jungle was silent. The helicopter had scared everything away. That silence was heavy. It was a threat. Then, slowly, nature returned. A cricket chirped. A bird called out from the canopy. A monkey screamed in the distance. This was good. It meant the animals weren't scared anymore. It meant there were no humans walking nearby. If the jungle goes quiet again, you know you are not alone. Miller signaled with his hand. Move out. We rose slowly, hunching over under the weight of the rucksacks. We moved in a standard LRRP formation. Point man in front, the most dangerous job. He watches for booby traps and the enemy. Then the team leader. Then the RTO with the radio. Then the rest of us. The rear security man walked backward as much as he walked forward, ensuring we weren't being tracked. We entered the tree line. The temperature dropped 10 degrees under the shade of the canopy, but the humidity spiked. It was like walking into a greenhouse. The light was dim, filtered through layers of leaves. We moved agonizingly slow. A LRP team doesn't march. We creep. 1 step. Check for tripwires. Put the foot down. Heel first, rolling to the toe to avoid snapping twigs. Pause. Listen. To cover 100 meters might take us an hour. We weren't trying to get somewhere fast. We were trying to stay alive. About 2 hours in, the point man froze. He raised a clenched fist. Everyone stopped. We sank to one knee, weapons trained outward. He pointed to the ground. We crept forward to look. There, pressed into the soft mud of a stream bank, was a footprint. It wasn't a boot print. It was a sandal, a Ho Chi Minh sandal. The tire tread sole was distinct, and water was still seeping into it. The print was fresh, maybe 10 minutes old. Miller looked at us, his eyes wide in the gloom. We weren't just in enemy territory. We were walking in their shadow. We moved deeper. The footprint on the riverbank had changed everything. We were no longer just patrolling. We were hunting and being hunted. The jungle in the Central Highlands is not just trees and bushes. It is a living, breathing barrier designed to stop you. We call them wait-a-minute vines. They are long, thin vines covered in backward-facing thorns. If you catch your sleeve on one, you can't just pull away. The more you pull, the deeper they dig. You have to stop, reach back, and carefully unhook yourself. Hence the name, wait a minute. Every step was a battle against the vegetation. The heat was suffocating. It was 90 degrees with 90% humidity. Sweat didn't evaporate. It just pooled in your boots. My uniform was soaked through within the first hour and stayed that way for 5 days. You could feel the salt caking on your eyebrows, stinging your eyes. But we couldn't drink whenever we wanted. Water discipline was strict. We had 4 quarts for 5 days. If you ran out, you didn't just turn a tap. You drank from a stream, used iodine tablets that made the water taste like pool cleaner, and prayed you didn't get dysentery. And then there were the leeches. They hung from the leaves, sensing your body heat as you passed. you'd feel a cold wet spot on your neck or your ankle. You didn't dare pull them off, or the head would stay under your skin and cause a nasty infection. You had to burn them off with a cigarette or put a drop of insect repellent on them until they let go. We were being eaten alive, slowly, by the jungle itself. By the second day, the silence starts to play tricks on your mind. You are hyper alert. Adrenaline is pumping constantly. Your brain tries to find patterns in the chaos of leaves and shadows. A swaying branch looks like a soldier waving. A shadow looks like a gun barrel. You start to hallucinate. Not crazy hallucinations, but subtle ones. You swear you hear voices in the running water of a stream. You think you smell cigarette smoke when there is none. We moved in a loop, heading toward higher ground to set up a night observation post. As night fell, the jungle changed. It became pitch black. You literally couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Sleeping on a LRRP mission is complicated. We slept in a wagon wheel formation, feet touching in the center so we could wake each other up with a nudge without making a sound. But you never really sleep. You drift in a twilight state, one eye open, one ear to the ground. That night, something walked past us. I couldn't see it, but I could hear the heavy crunch of footsteps on dry leaves. It wasn't an animal. Animals move gracefully. This was heavy, clumsy. Maybe a tiger? Or maybe an NVA soldier lost in the dark? I lay there, gripping my Car 15, finger on the trigger guard, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The footsteps stopped 10 feet from me. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Then, the footsteps moved away. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Day 3, we found it. We were moving along a ridge line when the point man signaled halt. He crouched low and pointed through the foliage. There, cutting through the dense jungle, was a trail. But not just a deer trail. This was a highway. The dirt was packed hard. Tree roots had been cut away. Overhead, the branches were tied back to form a tunnel, invisible from the air but wide enough for men to walk two abreast beneath the canopy. This was a branch of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We had found the artery. Now we had to see what was flowing through it. Miller signaled for us to set up an ambush observation point. We moved parallel to the trail, about 20 meters uphill, buried ourselves in the thick brush, and waited. This is what we were here for. To count. To record. We set up the Claymore mines, mechanical ambush, facing the trail, just in case we were discovered. But the order was, do not engage unless compromised. We were 6 men. If a battalion came down that trail, we were just speed bumps. So we watched, and we waited. It started with a low hum, a vibration in the ground. At 1400 hours, the jungle went quiet again. The birds stopped singing. Then we heard them. Voices, not whispering. Talking, laughing. My blood ran cold. The enemy was so confident here, in their own backyard, that they weren't even observing noise discipline. The first NVA soldier appeared around the bend. He was wearing a pith helmet and carrying an AK-47 slung casually over his shoulder. He looked young. Behind him came another, and another. Then came the porters, men and women pushing bicycles loaded with sacks of rice. Some carried RPG rockets strapped to their backs. They were moving south. I started counting, 10, 20, 30. I clicked the transmit button on my radio, whispering into the handset, shielding my mouth with my hand. Havoc Base, this is Team 2-4. I have heavy movement. Grid Echo Tango 79-4. Break. The voice on the other end was calm. Copy 2-4. What is the composition? Everything, I whispered. Regulars, porters, heavy weapons. The column kept coming. For an hour, they marched past us. We were 20 meters away. If one of them had looked up, if one of them had decided to step off the trail to relieve himself, we were dead. I made eye contact with Miller. He was staring at the trail, his face a mask of concentration. His knuckles were white on his weapon. There is a distinct smell to an enemy unit. It's a mix of unwashed bodies, stale tobacco, and nuoc mam, fish sauce. As the evening approached, the column stopped. They were setting up a bivouac area, right in front of us. This was the worst-case scenario. We were trapped. We couldn't move backward without making noise. We couldn't move forward. We had to stay frozen while an entire NVA company set up camp around us. Smoke started to drift up. They were cooking rice. The smell of burning wood and cooking food made my stomach cramp with hunger, but it also made me nauseous with fear. We could hear their conversations. I didn't speak Vietnamese, but I knew the tone. Soldiers complaining about the march. Someone laughing at a joke. It was surreal. We were invisible guests at their dinner party. A group of 3 NVA soldiers sat down on a log not 15 meters from my position. One of them took off his helmet and lit a cigarette. The flare of the match seemed like a spotlight in the dusk. I slowly, imperceptibly, rotated the safety selector on my rifle from safe to semi. Click. It was the loudest sound I had ever heard. The soldier stopped smoking. He tilted his head. He had heard it. The NVA soldier stood up. He said something to his friends, and they laughed, but he didn't smile. He unslung his AK-47. He started walking toward the brush, toward me. My heart stopped. I stopped breathing. I could see the sweat on his face. I could see the red star on his belt buckle. He walked closer, 10 meters, 8 meters. I had my sights center mass on his chest. My finger took up the slack on the trigger. I knew that the moment I fired, all hell would break loose. I would kill him, but his friends would kill me. And my team would be overwhelmed within seconds. 6 meters. He stopped. He looked directly at the bush I was hiding behind. He squinted. I prepared to die. I thought about my mom back in Ohio. I thought about the letter I hadn't mailed. Then, he unbuttoned his pants. He hadn't heard the safety click. He just needed to pee. He relieved himself on a bush 5 feet from my face. I watched the stream hit the leaves. He buttoned up, spat on the ground, and turned around. He walked back to the fire. I let out a breath that I felt like I had been holding for a lifetime. But we weren't safe yet. The sun was going down, and we were surrounded. The night passed in agonizing slowness. We lay in the mud, listening to the enemy sleep. We could hear their snores. We could hear the sentries shifting their weight. When the first gray light of dawn filtered through the canopy, the NVA camp began to stir. The smell of cooking fires returned. Miller tapped my leg. Time to go. We didn't stand up. We slithered backward on our stomachs, like snakes, inch by inch. We needed to put at least 100 meters between us and the camp before we could stand and move. It took us 45 minutes to move 50 meters. My muscles screamed. The insects were biting my face, but I couldn't swat them. Finally, the sounds of the camp faded slightly. Miller signaled to stand up. We formed up, ready to move fast and put distance between us and the hornet's nest. But luck runs out. In the jungle, it always runs out. We rounded a large banyan tree, and there he was, an NVA water carrier. He had walked away from the camp to fill canteens at a stream we hadn't seen. He was 10 feet away. We froze. He froze. For a split second, there was that look of mutual shock. The realization that 2 worlds had just collided. He dropped the canteens and opened his mouth to scream. "Contact front!" Miller yelled. The silence of the last 3 days was shattered instantly. My CAR-15 roared to life. I didn't aim. I just pointed and squeezed. The jungle erupted. The water carrier went down, but his scream had already echoed through the valley. From the camp behind us, a bugle sounded. Then whistles. High-pitched, frantic whistles. The sound of hundreds of men shouting orders. "Go, go, go! Move to the ridge!" Miller screamed. We broke into a run. Stealth was over. Now, it was a race. The jungle, which had been our hiding place, was now an obstacle course. Vines grabbed our legs. Thorny bushes tore at our skin. We smashed through the foliage, lungs burning, hearts pounding like sledgehammers. Behind us, the popping of AK-47 started. Pop, pop, pop. Then the heavy thump, thump, thump of a heavy machine gun, a RPD opening up. Bullets started shredding the leaves around us. It sounded like angry bees zipping past your ears. Snap. Crack. If you hear the crack, the bullet has already passed you. "RTO, get air on the line," Miller shouted. Our radio telephone operator, RTO, was running and talking at the same time, screaming into the handset. Mayday! Mayday! Team 2-4 is compromised. Heavy contact. We have a company-sized element in pursuit. Grid Echo Tango 7904. We need the snakes. Now. We made it to a small knoll, a rocky outcrop that gave us a little cover. Set up perimeter. We dove behind the rocks and fallen logs. We faced outward, back to back. The Alamo defense. Within minutes, they were on us. The NVA knew the terrain better than we did. They started flanking us. I saw movement in the ferns to my left. Green uniforms, pith helmets. I fired a burst. 2 rounds, bang bang. The enemy returned fire. Dirt kicked up into my eyes. A grenade exploded about 20 yards down the hill, shaking the ground. We were 6 men against at least 100. Claymores, Miller yelled. I grabbed the clacker, the detonator for the Claymore mines we had hastily set up as we stopped. I squeezed the handle 3 times. Boom! The explosion ripped through the jungle front. Thousands of steel ball bearings shredded everything in their path. The enemy fire stopped for a moment, but only for a moment. They were probing us, testing our lines, preparing for the final assault to overrun us. I checked my ammo. I had 10 magazines left. It wouldn't be enough. The radio crackled. It was the most beautiful voice I had ever heard. Team 2-4, this is Dark Horse 1-6. We are inbound. ETA 2 mics. Keep your heads down. Cobra gunships. The snakes. Pop smoke, the pilot ordered. I pulled the pin on a yellow smoke grenade and hurled it as far as I could down the hill toward the enemy. The thick yellow smoke billowed up through the trees. I see yellow, the pilot said. Yellow is Charlie. Hit everything south of the smoke, our RTO screamed. Then we heard it, the deep thrumming roar of the Cobras. They came in at treetop level, noses down, looking like angry predators. The miniguns on the nose of the Cobras spun up. Dirt! The sound is like canvas ripping, but 1,000 times louder. It's a continuous stream of lead. 4,000 rounds a minute. The jungle in front of us disintegrated. Trees were chopped in half. The ground churned up. The NVA fire stopped instantly. Nothing survives a minigun run. The Cobras bought us time, but we couldn't stay there. And the Hueys couldn't land. The trees were too tall, the slope too steep. Extraction will be strings. I say again, strings attached, the pilot radioed. That meant the McGuire rig. Ropes dropped from the helicopter. We would have to clip on and ride out hanging underneath the bird. The slick hovered over the hole in the canopy, 100 feet above us. The rotor wash was deafening, kicking up a storm of debris. 3 ropes dropped down. 2 men per rope. Hook up. Go. We scrambled. I grabbed the loop at the end of the rope. It's basically a canvas seat. You step into it, wrap your arms around the rope, and pray. We clipped our carabiners. Team is hooked. Pull it. The engine screamed as the pilot pulled pitch. Suddenly, my feet left the ground. I was yanked upward, through the branches, through the leaves, spinning slowly. I broke through the canopy and into the sunlight. I looked down. My boots were dangling 1,000 feet above the jungle floor. I was spinning in the wind, holding onto that rope with a death grip. To my left and right, the other ropes held my brothers. We were just specks hanging under a helicopter, flying at 80 knots. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was the feeling of being born again. We landed back at the fire base 20 minutes later. They set us down gently on the PSP steel matting. I unhooked the rope and fell to my knees. My legs wouldn't work. The adrenaline crash hit me like a freight train. I couldn't stop shaking. Sergeant Miller walked over. He pulled a cigarette out of his pocket, a pack he had kept dry in a plastic bag, and lit it. His hands were shaking too. He took a drag and passed it to me. We didn't say anything. We didn't have to. We counted heads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We were all there, dirty, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. We walked back to our hooch. The regular infantry guys watched us pass. They saw the 1,000-yard stare in our eyes, that look of men who have seen the other side. They gave us space. That night, Back in my cot, I listened to the artillery firing in the distance. It sounded rhythmic, almost soothing. I closed my eyes, but I didn't see the back of my eyelids. I saw the jungle. I saw the NVA soldier's face. I saw the rope spinning in the wind. We had survived the fishhook. But in 3 days, we would have to go back out. Because that was the job. We were the LRRPs. And the jungle was waiting. Thank you for watching this episode of Beneath the Metal. The stories of the LRRP teams are often overlooked, overshadowed by the larger battles of the Vietnam War. But for the men who served in these 6-man teams, the war was a personal, intimate, and terrifying experience. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and leave a comment below about which unit or battle you'd like us to cover next. Until then, keep the history alive.